Jamie, welcome back. The American government had previously claimed that they had decimated Iran's air defences. What does the downing of this F-15 US fighter jet say about Iran's military capabilities?
Well, it suggests, Jamie, and good afternoon to you, and thanks for having me back on. It suggests that Iran, of course, has squirreled away, despite 12,000 US attacks on it so far, that Iran has squirreled away a number of so-called pop-up systems. They could be, for example, ballistic missile launchers or drone launchers, which explain why Iran is still able to sort of strike targets in the Gulf, oil refineries, the tech companies that your previous correspondent was talking about, and also pop-up air defence systems. I mean, some air defence systems, like the Russian-made S-400s and S-500s, require a great deal of infrastructure, but older SA-10, SA-8, SA-12 systems are much easier to hide and can be quickly launched. And the F-15 Strike Eagle fighter, the one that's been shot down, is a fourth-generation fighter. It doesn't have the same stealth defensive technology that some of the more modern US planes like the F-35 have. So it flies at fairly low altitude for its bombing runs, and so it's an easier target for the Iranians to strike.
All of which begs the question then, has the United States underestimated Iran as well as the global fallout from this conflict?
Well, it certainly, I think, underestimated the Iranian resilience. First of all, of course, in terms of being able to decapitate the leadership, as in Venezuela, and expecting other leaders to immediately fall in behind the United States. That hasn't happened. The Iranian leadership has been decentralized. New leaders have emerged quickly to replace those that have been killed, and they are just as defiant as the old leadership. So we haven't really seen any crumbling of Iranian resistance there. Secondly, of course, Iran has an economic weapon. In exchange for the US weapon of mass destruction, it has the weapon of mass disruption in terms of closing the Strait of Hormuz with all of the economic pressure. That seems to be working very well for the Iranians at the moment and putting President Trump on the back foot with oil prices, petrol prices spiraling in the United States. And so the Iranians are hanging on to that. And I think, thirdly, yes, the Iranians, despite the military damage that they have sustained, have shown that even with limited residual capability, for example, a few air defense systems or a few drones or a few ballistic missiles, even if they fire them much more sporadically than what the Americans are able to do, they can still retaliate and they can still inflict a great deal of that economic damage, which is their main weapon going forward.
Given where we are, all these weeks in, what is the likelihood, do you think, of seeing US boots on the ground in Iran in this conflict?
Well, we might see them immediately, Jamie, because we've been talking about this F-15 Strike Eagle that's been shot down, the search for the second pilot. And, of course, the longer that search goes on, the more the United States may have to put ground forces in, special forces in, to cover the territory, to sort of fight back Iranian forces that will also be looking for this missing pilot and perform an extraction. And we saw, you remember, back in Somalia in the 1990s, that this could also lead to very large numbers of American casualties if those boots on the ground get involved in a firefight. The other aspect of boots on the ground, of course, is occupying Karg Island in the Straits of Hormuz or the coast of Iran along the Straits to try to reopen the Straits. President Trump has certainly got the wherewithal in terms of troop numbers in the region, about 10,000 Marines and special forces, so he could potentially do something. But, number one, this ground operation is extremely unpopular with American public opinion, including among his own MAGA base, and he would be taking an enormous political risk to do that. And number two, President Trump keeps blowing hot and cold whether he wants the US to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or just think that it's going to happen naturally, as he said the other day in his address to the nation, once the conflict is over, or drop the problem onto the Europeans and then let them do the job. So, yes, he has the option, but there's no sign of any consistent strategy towards which those American forces, those ground forces, would be employed.
Jamie, good to see you. Thank you. Jamie Shea, Senior Fellow of the Friends of Europe think tank and former NATO Deputy Assistant Secretary General.